Welcome to Changing Higher Ed, a podcast dedicated to helping higher education leaders improve their institutions. With your host, Dr. Drumm McNaughton, CEO of The Change Leader, a consultancy that helps higher ed leaders holistically transform their institutions. Learn more at changinghighered.com. And now, here's your host, Drumm McNaughton.
Thank you, David. Our guest today is Marvin Krislov, president of Pace University. Marvin is deeply passionate about higher education and his commitment to Pace's mission of Opportunitas, providing all students, regardless of economic background, access to the transformative power of education, shows up clearly in who he is, as it did in his previous presidency at Oberlin College, where he led collaborative, consensus-driven efforts to make the college more rigorous, diverse, inclusive, and accessible to students from every socioeconomic background. But what's unique about Marvin is not that he's a first-gen student who has risen to the presidency, or that he led the University of Michigan's legal defense of its admissions policies that resulted in the 2003 Supreme Court decision recognizing the importance of student body diversity as its vice president and general counsel. What is unique is that he believes strongly that compassion for students is at the heart of persistence, and that he practices exactly what he preaches. Marvin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Drumm. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. I was reading the article that you wrote about students and compassion. And besides, that which will be our primary topic today, I was blown away because you're a president who still teaches classes. That's amazing.
I do, and I love it. I find that it really gives me great insight into what's going on, and it helps me understand our student body better, and also helps me understand what faculty and staff do on a daily basis. And it also inspires me because the students have such optimism and idealism, and their whole futures are ahead of them. So it's a great experience for me to be in the classroom teaching.
And I'm sure it gives you great insights as to why students come there as well.
Absolutely. And what I often enjoy the most are the conversations either before or after class or in office hours, where the students talk to me about where they come from and what their goals are. Sometimes they share things that are deeply personal as well. And I feel very honored to be able to understand their life's journey. And our goal is, of course, to help them succeed in whatever way we can.
So what are the students telling you about why did they come there? I mean, because this is an important piece of market research. Normally you turn this over to, institutional research or marketing or an outside firm. You're able to get that information directly from the students.
Well, at Pace, our students are here because I think they want to have a great education and also want to have the experiences that the New York region really offers. And so we offer many internships, clinical experiences, and I think a lot of people are drawn to that. And some of the students are from the region, but some of them come from far away just because they want to be here. And it's a range of reasons, but one thing that I hear over and over is they want to pursue a dream, and they think that Pace is a great place for them to pursue that dream.
Yeah. Well, you teach one of the first courses they take, correct?
Yes. In the fall, we offer a course for every first-year student called University 101, and that's the class that I wrote about teaching. And we do introduce the students to everything from how to study, how to manage their time, how to manage their budget, how to deal with mental health and stress issues, and really try to acclimate them to the university, as well as creating a relationship with a professor and other students as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would assume you're not the only person to teach this course, correct?
No. They're all taught in small classes of about 18, say, to 20 at the most.
Mm-hmm. And do you have the same group of faculty teaching this?
It changes a bit from year to year, and we tend to do it by interest areas. I teach undecided students, and I find them a particularly interesting group because they are undecided. And so they're exploring, they're in the arts and sciences college, and what they do, some of them are interested in more science, some of them are interested in the humanities, some social sciences, some may end up going to business or in the business school or computer science because they're just not sure. And we do have faculty, though, who are teaching, let's say, a science-oriented group or a business-oriented group or something like that. But I tend to teach the undecided students. We call them the exploring students. And we go over a whole range of options for them. And we try to help them think about what the 4 years are going to look like. And by the end of the first semester, even if they haven't figured out exactly what they're majoring in, we hope that they've narrowed down their choices.
Well, yours is one of the few institutions that I know of that has a, quote, first course like this to really get students ready for the college experience. This is amazing.
Well, I think that, thank you. I think it's a really smart way to begin people's college experience. And I will say, if students who are transfer students also take a slightly modified course like this too. And I've talked to a lot of people who said, gee, I wish I had this type of a course when I started college, because there are a lot of things that your families or your high school may not have taught you. And we deal with a lot of students, first gen, to go to college. And so, some of their parents may not have had the college experience. And in this world, everything is changing so quickly that even if people have gone to college, things have changed since in many instances they did go to college.
And so what's the percentage of first gen students that you have?
We have nearly 50% who are first in their family to go to college. So that's a significant percentage.
That's a huge percentage. And because of that, your willingness, your ability to help them integrate into the college experience, if they don't have a parent who's done this or a sibling or something like that, it's really important so that they understand not only the processes, but the expectations behind it.
Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is create a structure as well, because many students who just come to college don't really have a structure for managing their time. And some of that is just saying, okay, this is the way college is going to look. It's very different from the way your life was in high school. And, particularly some students are still living with their families. So that also adds another level of complexity as well. But it's really, we find it's a very successful way to ease students into the experience of college.
Yeah, and that's so important, because what you guys do in many respects is transformative education. It's a transformative experience for the students.
Absolutely. And we think that not only are we introducing them to new ideas, new perspectives, new groups of people, but we're also helping them think about their futures and their careers. And over a third of our students are from families that are earning less than $40,000 a year, Pell eligible students. And when students graduate from PACE, the average starting salary is in the low 60s. So in that 4-year period, we've already done something that changes the trajectory of that family for one student. And so it really, we talk a lot about the transformational power of education, Drumm. And I think to see what we do and to see the way we change people's lives and change their families' lives is really inspiring. And it's what keeps me going, even through periods like the ones we've been through in the past few years.
Yeah, and you guys there in New York City have been hammered as much as anybody has across the country with COVID and everything else that's going on.
Well, and because so many people are taking mass transit and dealing with somewhat crowded conditions, COVID was particularly intense, particularly in the spring of 2020. But I will say that my colleagues at PACE have done an amazing job of helping us navigate this period, and we really have done extraordinarily well, I think.
Yeah, everything that I have read, it's just been a model for how to create that compassionate environment for not only students, but for faculty and staff as well.
We've worked really hard to try to understand the needs of the community, and also understand the needs of the students as well as the faculty and staff. And we've been teaching in person since the fall of 2020, although there have been some classes that are hybrid. I taught one of those myself, where there were some students in the room and some students who were on Zoom. And we've even accommodated students who weren't able to attend classes because either they were ill or they weren't sure if they were ill or whatever. We've really been able to be very flexible, and I'm pleased to say today is the first day that we haven't asked people to wear a mask in classrooms. So Monday will be my first class in a very long time where I won't be wearing a mask. And I'm really excited about teaching without a mask.
No kidding. People will actually be able to see you smile.
Right. And I hope I can see them smile too.
This is true. So one of the things that I found was really unique about your program is the emphasis you put on not only internships and projects, but people designing their own programs. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. We have a lot of opportunities for people to do things, everything from civic engagement, which is actually a mandatory requirement to graduate, but we also allow people to design research projects or field placements that will allow them to get credit. And, some of our students are able to work in their professions during the time they're at Pace, and many of our students work in outside jobs that may not be as directly related as well, but we do encourage students to have internships that will allow them to advance their careers. And that's something that we really try to be flexible and understand the students' needs and meet them where they are.
And it's so important to be able to do that. I think when we were talking last time, you talked about some students having 2 internships per year.
Yeah, well, we just had our student scholarship dinner last night, and the young man who spoke talked about he's on his 4th or 5th internship, and he's in his senior year. We really aim to have at least 2 internships before a student graduates. That's what we think really is a minimum to launch students successfully in their careers. And that can be summer or during the school year. Many of our students have more than that, 4 or 5 sometimes. And internships can be for a short period of time during the week. And now in this new world we're living in, some of the internships are remote as opposed to in person. Our location for the downtown campus is very favorable because we're right near City Hall, right near Wall Street. And in the Westchester campus, we have internships. Some of them are on campus as well because we have student-run businesses. But we try to create opportunities for students to experience the world of work as well as the classroom.
Well, it also helps them to make a decision as to what their career at least is going to start out with.
Exactly. And sometimes the most valuable thing is deciding. I talked to a student yesterday who switched her field of study, and that's a very valuable lesson for her to have learned, because she decided that she really wanted to do more marketing than particular management type of field. So anyway, these are great opportunities for students to figure out what they want to do and how they jibe with various work environments.
And it also helps to promote lifelong learning because they find something new, they want to explore that. It's a good way for them to realize that what they pick is not going to be their ultimate career or even their penultimate. They're going to be doing multiple things as they grow.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the messages for students today, is that it's not going to be, even in let's say our parents' generation or grandparents' generations, who people worked for 20 years or 30 years even at the same place. And some of these students are going to be operating largely on their own and having various gigs, and we're trying to equip them for that as well, particularly students who might be in the more creative fields. We want to try to help them figure out how to navigate that world.
So when their plans change, what do you do as an institution to help the student? What do you do to help support that student through that change?
Well, it depends when and what that looks like. But we do facilitate changes between schools. Some students transfer from, let's say, the arts and sciences to computer science or business, and vice versa. And I've met many students who've transferred in all those directions. If they decide to change senior year, it's a little tougher, and we might have to work with them, maybe do some summer work and so forth. But we have a very strong advising system. And in theory, the advisors are working with the students every step of the way. Sometimes things happen and students do make changes sort of near the end, and we try to work with them to accommodate. But what we really try to do, and we've set up technology and systems to try to make sure that students understand where they are in the process, and then that they have at least 2 mentors, an advisor, and then at least 1 full-time faculty member who's a mentor as well.
That's fabulous. And so these 2 mentors that you talk about, where are they? Internal, external to the institution?
They're internal, but we also do offer an alumni mentoring program, and students can sign up for that as well. And sometimes those mentors are at least as important as the internal mentors. I also will say that mentors can be not necessarily the traditional mentors. I think athletic coaches can be great mentors. I think staff members can be great mentors. Religious people can be great mentors. So there are a lot of folks on campus. And what I really love about PACE is the sense of community and the commitment to student success. And we have, our motto is Opportunitas, which means opportunity or advantage in Latin. And I think I've rarely seen an institution so aligned on its mission, which is student success.
Well, and your structures are set up that way as well. Students' plans changing, whatever. You've got the mentoring, you've got the advising, but your career services plays a huge part in this as well, do they not?
Absolutely. And we encourage students to meet with career services early in their time. That's part of the University 101. And I will say also, we haven't gone there yet, but there are going to be bumps in the road. And I will mention one bump in the road for many people in the past few years has been mental health and stress. And one of the things that we are paying attention to is, how are students doing? How is their well-being? And I know that that's something that I'm very passionate about, because I do think that these have been very challenging times. We'd already seen a rise in mental health challenges even before the pandemic, but the pandemic has really increased that. Particularly, we find among certain populations, lower income populations, students of color. So we're really trying to identify challenges and provide the support, whether it's professional support, professional counselors, therapists, but also peer support. And we find sometimes peer support is even more valuable in supporting students.
Well, one of the things that really impressed me when we spoke the other day, you said that there are resources there for mental health for everybody, obviously up to a point, but you provide those resources and you make them known.
Absolutely. We talk about it, and we try to, frankly, it's part of my syllabus that I say, if you need support, this is the place to go. We try to talk about it in the first year in that University 101 class. And we also, I think the student groups have been very helpful in making sure that people understand that this is something that many, many people are accessing these days, and that it's not just limited to certain groups of people or certain types of people or whatever. And groups such as, we have a student group called Active Minds, the JED Foundation we work with. There are a lot of people who are on campus, Radical Health, who are working with students to understand that this is all part of wellness. And I was just talking to our chief wellness officer, who was talking about the different types of wellness, everything from financial wellness to mental health well-being as well. And so we're sending out a lot of messages that say it's okay to say you need help, and here's where you can go.
And that is so much in line with your overall feeling of compassion that you have. I mean, how many institutions have a chief wellness officer? How many institutions can remove the stigma of going to a mental health professional and helping people realize, yes, in fact, that's what I need to do?
Well, I think that's something that is very much on the minds of most of us in higher education. I was just at a convening recently in Washington that the Mary Christie Institute sponsored. It was held at Georgetown University, and everyone there, of course, this was a coalition of the willing, but we were all talking about how significant a challenge it is. And one of the things, Drumm, that I think about is it's not just today's college students, it's the students coming up, because many of these students have lived through 2 or 3 years being in a virtual learning environment, or largely in a virtual learning environment. And I think that for young people in particular, that's really challenged the natural social connections that occur in adolescence. And so I think we're all really concerned about making sure that we are equipped to deal with this next generation, both the current students, but also the students who are going to be coming to us in the next few years.
Well, you said something that really struck me is we never really know what's going on with people. We can't assume how they're doing. We have to ask them. And this is all part of the compassion and forming those bonds that people feel the trust and they feel like they can open up to you.
Yes. And no one person's going to be able to do this. I try to have one-on-ones with the students and talk to them. And some of them do express their concerns, whether they're having family issues or other types of issues, academic issues, and so forth. But you need to have a lot of different people showing the compassion and love. And that's faculty, but it's also staff, it's also other students. And it really is the community feeling that I think we're trying to create. And I think we do a wonderful job.
Yeah. And this is all part of encouraging the students to soldier on, to build resiliency within them. It's not, mollycoddling them.
No, absolutely. And the idea is that we know that you may be experiencing some difficulty, and let us work with you to figure that out. And so for me, as when I'm teaching, it may be working with people to give them a little extra time on assignments. A number of my students have said they're not feeling well, or some of them have lost members of their family. I mean, there are a whole range of things that happen. And what I try to do is help them not give up, but set realistic goals and complete a paper or complete a project. Having said that, it is a very challenging time. And I've talked to many faculty who say that this is the level of support that they are needing to give is something unlike what they've seen before. And then, of course, the other thing that we know from faculty and staff is many of them have their own challenges, whether it's caregiving or family concerns on their part as well.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things you've mentioned was the data on the students not coming back. It's not necessarily because they can't handle the academics. It's that old thing that life gets in the way.
Right. And, I think many others in higher education are worried about students who haven't returned. We've done major outreach to students. We were able to get some students back. I think there's been some uncertainty about what college would look like because of restrictions and health and safety mandates. I think some students have had some difficulties, and that's what we've heard, that they just don't feel equipped to come back. And we continue to reach out to students, and I really hope that most of the students will come back. I hope that they all come back, of course, and we're ready to deal with whatever issues students present. I just think that we know the data shows that having a college degree makes a huge difference in one's lifetime earning capacity, but also so many other measures of success in life. And that it may seem like it's not a bad thing to do in the short run, but we want to get people to come back and to complete in a reasonable amount of time.
Well, since you've been using this approach with compassion for students and meeting them where they are, what's happened to your persistence rate?
So our graduation rates, persistence and graduation rates have risen. We still have some goals to improve those. I think the pandemic has maybe made it a little more challenging, but we've been increasing our rates. We're about to hit what for us will be a record, which will be 60% graduation rate in 6 years. And the pandemic, I think, is going to may make it a little challenging, but we are committed to meeting students where they are and trying to help them. And look, some of them may transfer to other schools, some of them may do other things, but we do think that we're on the right track, and we're setting up structures, advising, and other structures that really help students understand where they are and get where they need to be.
And that is so critical, is to be able to meet the student where they are and provide the services that they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so we're coming up to the end of our time. This has been a great conversation. 3 takeaways for your fellow presidents and higher ed boards on how compassion can really help your institution.
Well, I think one we've touched on already is that it always pays to try to give people the benefit of the doubt, because you never know. You never know what has been going on in someone's life. And so I really try to do that. I can't say I'm perfect at it, but I try very hard to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think for leaders, it's important to be visible and accessible. I think particularly because during the pandemic, many of us were just figures on Zoom. It's very important to be out there. And I make a point to go to the cafeteria and say hello to people and try to go to events and see students and faculty and staff. And I think that that's very reassuring. And the other is that I'd say that a lot of changes have occurred that we don't even know the impact. And so we're going to have to continue to reimagine and redesign education in the next few years. And in many ways, it's an exciting period. We can do things with technology, and we've all learned in a pretty fast way how to do that. I think we're going to have to continue to be reinventing and thinking. And I guess that's part of the magic of education, that it really doesn't stand still, and we're just going to have to keep working on it.
I think so. Those are great takeaways. Thank you. So what's next for you, Marvin or Pace?
So what's next for me and Pace is we have our first in-person commencement in 3 years. I'm really excited about that. On May 16th at the USTA, the tennis stadium, we're going to have people from all our schools, all our campuses, and we're inviting people from past 3 years, the class of 22 as well as 20 and 21. Very focused on the impact of external events on our students, particularly thinking a lot about students from Ukraine. And on a fun note, I'm looking forward to doing some travel. I love travel. I love going to new places, and I haven't had so much of that. So I'm looking forward to getting out, going places, and meeting people and learning more.
Very nice. Where's your first trip going to be?
Well, I've done a few domestic trips, but I'm planning to go to England and Israel this summer. So I'm excited about that.
Very good. If I may make a suggestion, be sure to do the tour at Wimbledon. It is amazing.
That's a great idea. I did that. I was at Wimbledon when I was a much younger person, and it's probably great to do it again.
It really is. Well, Marvin, thank you so much for being on the program. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and wish you and Pace all the best going forward. And kudos to you about using the USTA facility for your graduation. I mean, that is one of the benefits of being in New York, huh?
It's going to be magical, and we just are hoping that the weather gods cooperate. Anyway, thank you very much. It's great being with you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode, and I want to thank today's guest, Marvin Krislov, president of Pace University, for his sharing his thoughts on how compassion is at the heart of improving enrollment and persistence at Pace University. Our next guest is Dr. Jason Boyers, president of Rosemont College. Jason has a semi-traditional higher ed background, which is why he approaches higher ed a bit differently than many other traditional presidents. Jason believes strongly that colleges must innovate or die, and he's leading this charge to reinvent a tiny Catholic liberal arts college in suburban Philadelphia. Until next time.
Changing Higher Ed is a production of The Change Leader, a consultancy committed to transforming higher ed institutions. Find more information about this topic, along with show notes on this episode at changinghighered.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the show, and we would also value your honest rating and review. Email any questions, comments, or recommendations for topics or guests to podcast@changinghighered.com. Changing Higher Ed is produced and hosted by Dr. Drumm McNaughton, post-production by David L. White.